Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so good to see you here.
Good to be here.
Great. How are you feeling since our last session?
For the most part, pretty good. But I think I think we should talk about is my girlfriend has a dog, and that's been creating a lot of stress and anxiety. So, and you know from my past that I don't do so well with dogs, and I'm afraid we might get to a point where she's going to take the dog over me. Rather not have it come to that. It's possible.
I can totally understand you feeling anxious about this situation because I know how much you care about your girlfriend, and also I know how fearful you are of dogs. So we had talked in the past about an avoidance as a strategy for your dog phobia, but it seems like now that maybe won't work so much, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, so would it be okay if I introduced you to something else that might work?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So what it's called is systematic desensitization, and there's a tactic using a hierarchy where basically you name a few different fearful situations, things that would cause you anxiety with the dog, and with instances with the dog. And really what it's useful for is it breaks down your fear to one by one into different points, and it helps you really visualize your fear. And if you address your fear point by point, then you can better understand your fear.
Okay.
And hopefully, in your case, better take control of your fear.
Yeah.
Does that sound like something you would be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. I want to let you know that anytime we do an activity like this, it might invoke some feelings of anxiety. It might invoke some feelings of fear, but that's okay. You've handled them before. We know some tactics, some breathing, relaxation. We know all of that to get through this, right?
Yeah.
So are you still comfortable? You want to move forward?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the first steps that we do is kind of just make a list of as many as you can get. The final list is going to be about 10, but you can get up to 6, that's fine. So one of the most important parts of this is that you physically write it down because it helps you really be in the moment.
Okay.
So I'm just going to give you this pen and paper, and if you could just write down a couple of scenarios or situations that would cause you anxiety when it comes to interacting with a dog, and each one maybe just let me know. Let's work through it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the most obvious one would be petting a dog.
Right, I remember because that's kind of how this whole thing started, right?
Right.
Right, I can imagine that would be really fearful for you.
Yeah.
But, okay.
I mean, I guess the next closest thing to that would be walking a dog.
Right, yeah, I remember you saying that, there was a situation where you saw a dog walk around multiple dogs on the street, right? Something
Yeah.
like that. In the past, you would just avoid that, right?
Yeah.
So this is just a process to get you to kind of overcome the fear rather than avoid it.
Well, I guess a way to get good with unfamiliar dogs, maybe go to visit a shelter.
That's a great idea. I think that's a great idea because they'll be in the cages. It won't be too up close and personal. I think that's a great idea. Good one.
Okay. Let's see. Specific with my girlfriend, probably petting the dog. I mean, not petting the dog, feeding the dog.
Oh, feeding the dog, yeah. And I think that's great that you would direct it, specifically for your girlfriend's dog because that's the dog of issue right now, right?
So would like a 1A to walking a dog be going for a walk with her specifically and her dog?
Yeah, I think that's great. If that's something that you feel would really bring your relationship closer and show that you're making the effort to really love this dog and try really hard to get over your fear.
Yeah, especially given the size of it too.
Yeah, it's definitely a large breed of dog, so I think it's very brave of you to even write that down.
So the dog sleeps in the room with her.
Oh, okay.
So probably one of the bigger ones, not the biggest one, would be spending the night at her place since the three of us would be in the same room together.
Wow, Yeah, I can see that that would be very fear-invoking for you. So does that mean you haven't spent the night there because of this?
Right.
Okay, so that is something that is a good goal for us to build up to, because I think that's important for you, right? To
Yeah,
build on a
absolutely.
relationship.
Yeah.
So how many do you have now?
6.
6, so that's great. Let's start with the 6.
Okay.
So we've kind of went over them while you were writing them down. But now let's go over them and number them from 1 to 6. 1 would be the least fear-invoking, the least anxiety-invoking, and 6 would be the most.
Okay.
So where do you think your highest one would be, your highest problem?
I'm probably sleeping in the same room with the dog.
Okay.
There'd be no way to kind of, I mean, from an anxiety level, I would be low because I'd be sleeping, but I'd also not be able to guard against anything, you know.
Right, and maybe sleeping, you might have some sleeping issues, yeah.
I might not be able to sleep at all.
Right, okay, so that's a great one to make as your highest, so yeah, you can number that. Where do you think you'd be lowest?
The lowest. Well, if I cheated walking a dog, I could walk like a little, you know, like
A little dog.
A little dog that might not be
Yeah.
as scary as petting a dog.
I think that's a great idea, okay, so, yeah, maybe start with walking a strange dog, not your girlfriend's dog, because I know it's a big dog, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know what your second most fearful one would be?
Either visiting the shelter or feeding my girlfriend's dog in close proximity to the dog's food, you know. I don't know if I'll get anxious, the dog might growl or maybe snap at me if I'm handling his food.
So it sounds like that would probably be number 5.
Okay.
So what do you think would be your second least fearful?
Probably petting a dog.
Petting a dog, okay,
Yeah.
that's great, so you can number that as 2. Now, this gets a little tricky is when you kind of have to decipher the middle ones.
Right.
So if you could choose between visiting the shelter and walking your girlfriend's dog, which is a little bit larger,
Yeah.
which one would be least fearful for you?
Well, I know the dog's big, but since it's her dog and she would be there with me, I think that might be a little less fearful than being in a shelter with. I mean, I know it's still a controlled situation, but it's almost strange dogs.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so that would be your 3. And then that leaves going to a shelter for 4. So I think you have the start of your hierarchy. So how does it feel looking at this? And knowing that we're going to be working on each of these things.
I think it feels pretty good. I think it's a pretty good curve upwards from
Great.
least to most difficult.
Great, I'm so happy you feel that way. So for next session, I give you homework every week. I think that, it would be important for you to get to at least 10. So
Okay.
if you could think of 4 more fearful situations and then throw them in the mix as to where they would be most fearful and least fearful. And then also write each of them on an individual index card so we can work on them one by one by one. It'll help it go more separately.
Okay.
So do you think that's something that's possible for you to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling better. I like that we have a plan in place.
Great.
It seems like it should be, the progression is logical and makes sense, so I think that'll be a little bit easier than just kind of jumping into the deep end.
Great. I'm so happy you feel that way. So it was a great session. It was great to see you.
Thank you. It's great.
And I hope to see you next week and then we'll get started.
Okay.
All
Looking
right.
forward to
Sounds
it.
great.